Hi YouTube, it's been a long time since I've made a video. I don't know who exactly my new followers are, but I used to have a different YouTube channel that was dedicated completely to my experience and story with antidepressant and benzo withdrawal, and I actually deleted that channel just for some personal reasons, and I kind of regret it, so I'm thinking I'm going to start up talking about those topics again on this channel, just so I can keep it kind of all in one place. I use my other social media platforms for other things, so if this is your story, if you can relate, then I'm going to rededicate my channel to that. So welcome back, or welcome if you're new here. So just a little backstory, if you want, I will link, or if you want to watch, I will link my full story of exactly what happened to me, my whole drug history, and how I got to where I am today. So I'll link that actually above, I'm not sure which side it'll show up on, and then also in the description box. So as of today, actually as of yesterday, I am 22 months drug-free. And if you're actually one of my old followers, it maybe sounds a little bit confusing because I had made a 2 years drug-free video in 2020, but that actually was when I was 2 years drug-free from just the antidepressant citalopram that I had been taking for 7 years. And then if you followed my story or watched my other video, I reinstated the drugs after 23 months because I was struggling with a lot of mental symptoms, some physical, but most of those had worn off. So I was mostly dealing with mental symptoms, and I had kind of just let myself not believe that a withdrawal from any type of psychiatric drug could last that long, and so I reinstated my original drug at a low dose, and I was kind of playing around with doses, and I ended up getting akathisia, which, if you're unfamiliar, akathisia is a very distressing movement disorder that's characterized by inner restlessness, the inability to sit still. It has a whole bunch of symptoms, so I won't go over all of those in this video, but anyway, I developed that, and then I ended up going on a bunch of different drugs. I tried a couple of antipsychotics, I tried other antidepressants, SSRIs. I did not try any other type of SNRI or tricyclic, just SSRIs, and then I also got addicted to benzos just because I had developed akathisia. I wasn't sleeping. I had gone 5 nights without sleeping, so I started taking Ativan on a regular basis, and I regret it to this day. I stayed on the Ativan for about 2 months, and then I actually was starting to develop symptoms after taking Ativan that Ativan was supposed to abate. So it was kind of going paradoxical on me. So I started doing a micro taper, and my movement symptoms were getting so severe that my whole body was out of control. My mom ended up calling 911. I was in the hospital for a few days, and then they took me off Ativan cold turkey. And then my body actually in some ways got better, in other ways got worse. And I was released, and I came home, and I was completely bedridden, house-ridden for a few months, and then my mom was kind of like, you need to start doing something with your days. And I was just paralyzed by symptoms, and just very, very slowly I started building up to doing more and more each day, just getting into a bit of a routine. It wasn't much, I mean, nothing compared to what I was like before the medication, or before I reinstated even. And so then I stayed off the drugs I had been off the drugs for 6 or 7 months. So I came off benzos February 21st, 2021, and then on September 16th-ish, I ended up getting pregnant. And I had started getting small windows about a month before I got pregnant, and like just relief of some of my severe symptoms. I had so many symptoms. I can't remember if I list them all in my other video, but my worst ones by far were akathisia, 24/7 intrusive thoughts. They were bordering on, if not complete, hallucinations. My psychiatrist called them, I can't remember what they were called, some type of hallucination. So those mental symptoms, the akathisia, not being able to sleep, not being able to be alone. So I was sleeping in my bed, in my mom's bed. I needed her to literally like rock me when I would go lay down in my bed. It was so bad because I couldn't self-soothe, and I couldn't find any safety anywhere. My nervous system was just completely jacked all the time. Those were, yeah, and just a feeling of my nerves jumping around inside my body. It was like, I kind of describe it different ways at different times. So sometimes I call it shocking or sparking. That feels like it's coming down my spine and shooting out into my extremities. Sometimes I feel like an intense vibrations and sort of explosions inside my chest, muscle squeezing, whole body burning, feeling like I'm being prodded with a live wire, just all kinds of really excited nerve symptoms, really uncomfortable, shaking, tremoring, vibrations, all kind of stuff, just horrible symptoms. So I started getting windows right before I got pregnant, and then the mishmash of hormones and everything that goes along with pregnancy brought things back with a vengeance the first trimester, and then the second trimester they started to die down, but then I was having all kinds of other problems that were pregnancy related, so constant infections. I am 40 years old, so I'm not a young mom. I also have other chronic diseases. I've had type 1 diabetes for almost 25 years, celiac disease, so I have an autoimmune body. It was a high risk pregnancy. And so just infection after infection after infection. And then in the third trimester, I developed severe preeclampsia, which turned into HELLP syndrome, which is life-threatening. So I ended up having an emergency C-section and delivering my baby over 5 weeks early, and had to take a bunch of drugs. So I have developed sensitivities to medication since coming off benzos, and I was very afraid of childbirth because of all the drugs involved. So I had a doula that I had hired. She was very well aware of my plans and what I wanted for birth and what my requests were and what my desires were for my birthing experience. Unfortunately, all that was thrown out the window when I was having my emergency C-section because I was in a life-threatening situation. But I did have an Akathisia Alliance card that I presented to my surgeons, my OBGYN, all of the doctors, the whole team that was there when I got to the hospital by ambulance. I showed all of them my Akathisia card just to make sure I wasn't getting drugs that are really strongly correlated with more akathisia or worsening akathisia. So I ended up being in the hospital for 8 days. My baby was in the NICU, and I had to get a blood transfusion because I was severely anemic, had really low hemoglobin. I had blood clotting or anti-blood clotting, I can't remember which one, needles every day. I had to take blood pressure medication. I had a whole plethora of things I had to take, and I did okay on most of them. I actually just had a reaction to Benadryl, which was really surprising. It was totally paradoxical for me. I had to have that before my blood transfusion. I also had antibiotics and different things. It was kind of a nightmare. But then after I had my baby, I actually developed, this is unrelated to the drugs or akathisia, I developed severely numb hands and weak hands. So basically, because of the preeclampsia and the extreme swelling I had from that, my nerves got crushed in my arms and my hands, and essentially I got severe nerve damage. So my right hand was almost completely non-functional, and then my left hand was only partially functional, and I'm right-handed. So they thought I had developed carpal tunnel, so I had carpal tunnel surgery 18 days after giving birth. So then I had to try and heal from that. So basically I had to have full care the first 2 months that my baby was born. My mom took care of me and her, thank God for her. And then slowly through a lot of physio and just time, a lot of the symptoms of, my hand trouble abated. I saw a couple different neurologists, and they thought it was just temporary from the extreme swelling. They had never seen swelling like mine before. So I just still have some numb, like this thumb is totally numb still on this side. Like when I do that, it's numb. And then I have some numb patches on the backs of my hands, and but it doesn't limit my functionality anymore. So luckily I'm able to do everything. With that being said, after I was able to start taking care of my daughter full time, again, because my hands were better, I was still, actually I had kind of some breaks from my akathisia symptoms and my other withdrawal symptoms. At this point, when my baby was 2 months old, I was 17 months off drugs. So I was fairly far off, but still not super far off. And like I said, I had to take all those drugs during childbirth and before I had the baby because I had infections and all kinds of stuff. And so then about 3 months postpartum, I got really bad. where I could barely function anymore because of my nervous system symptoms. So that was another hellish month or two, but I was so determined that now that I had my baby, I'm like, okay, I'm done with all kinds of drugs. I can't have any more setbacks. I have to be a mom now. And so I had that horrible kind of break at 3 months, 3 months postpartum, 2.5, 3 months postpartum. And then that lasted maybe a month or two, and then I really, really felt like I was getting progress, making progress as far as, okay, I can feel my body healing. And then like in November, so about a month ago, I was telling people I was 70% recovered. I was feeling so much better. My mental symptoms and my akathisia, which were the worst symptoms I had, were getting better. I was still getting waves, but they weren't as severe or as long as they had been for the previous, 18 months or however long. And so I developed a sinus infection at about the middle of November, and I was freaking out because I'm like, I'm not taking antibiotics. I cannot have another setback. I have a baby to take care of. I'm so tired of all of this. I need to be done. And so I did a bunch of home remedies, did everything I knew how to do to take care of a sinus infection at home. Nothing was working. I was getting sicker and sicker, so I ended up going to the doctor. I ended up taking a 10-day course of amoxicillin, and after the second pill, I was literally up, bolted awake at night, frantic, pacing around the house. I had to have a shower at 3 in the morning. I could not get my heart rate down. I could not, and it's not, I've had people on my old channel say, oh, this is anxiety, this is a mental disorder. It's not. I never had anything like this before I took these drugs. Nothing. I had some anxiety and I had some panic attacks, but they had been well controlled for years before I took any medications. The only reason I ever took the first one was because of a job loss, and I was feeling depressed because of that, and my doctor put me on an antidepressant for 7 years. It's just awful. It's literally the biggest regret of my life. And so anyway, back to the antibiotics. I phoned my doctor after that second pill, and he said, oh, I don't think that that's from the antibiotics, but I know that your case is, like, he knows my case and how my body is complex, and I tend to have rare side effects and stuff like that. And he's the one who has, I'm actually on disability for akathisia, and he has that diagnosed. He has diagnosed me along with a psychiatrist and a neurologist. My neurologist told me that all my jerking movements and my movement and spastic body was from benzos. So I have an official diagnosis. And so after I had that second pill, and the doctor said, I don't know if it's from the antibiotics, but he believed me. He doesn't gaslight me like I've had a lot of other doctors do. And so he said, stop taking them. But I felt like I had to push through, just because with diabetes, infections can get complicated fast. And I felt like, because what happened to me in 2010 was I had severe sinus infection that wasn't treated properly, and it ended up getting so bad that I had to take these crazy strong antibiotics for 6 weeks. And I just thought, if that happened to me now, I wouldn't be able to tolerate those strong drugs. So I thought I better just push through now, because I had been sick at this point for 3 weeks already. And so I pushed through and took them. I hated taking them. I hated taking every single pill. I got through it, and then what has happened to me in the past is 2 weeks off the amoxicillin, my body just went nuts. I mean, I couldn't sit down. I was so restless. I was so anxious. And just all of those nerve feelings, I couldn't function. And so now I've been off the amoxicillin for 3 weeks, and I'm getting windows now. Like right now, my body feels calm. But if it was a few days ago, I would never have been able to film this. So that's kind of my update right now. I don't know who my followers are now, and I don't know what happened to my old followers, but I'm just wanting to dedicate this channel back to my experience, because it's profoundly changed my life. It's something that I don't wish on my worst enemy, and I think a lot of people are misdiagnosed when it comes to, well, first of all, mental illness. Like for me, mine was situational. It wasn't even mental illness, it was just situational depression after job loss. And then I think that people's akathisia and nervous system issues from the drugs is constantly misdiagnosed. So, I mean, I have talked to, in the almost 5 years that I've been going through this in total, I've talked to hundreds of people that are going through the exact same thing. So if that's you, you're not alone, and things do get better over time, but you have to be really, really careful with everything you take and ingest everything. So yeah, I'll get into more details in other videos, but I just wanted to share a little bit of an update, and I will see you next time. Bye.